What'd you think of the promo from SmackDown? Let's talk about that for a minute because we saw the show start with the Bloodline. Roman Reigns and the rest of the crew were out first. He cuts a promo, hands the Paul to Paul Heyman, hands the mic to Paul. You know what I'm saying? And then they say you're going to see the People's Champ after this commercial break. Paul threw to a commercial from inside the ring. I just love that and by the way, I know that we as viewers of the show may not enjoy that. I get that. But let me just tell you the value that an ad agency or an advertiser sees in that as part of no longer being a necessary evil, but really becoming almost a part of the show, as silly as it may be and frustrating as it may be if you're in the arena and everybody's just going to stand there for a few minutes. For the television audience standpoint, that's huge. Here comes The Rock. He cuts a really long promo. He's healing on the crowd, sort of putting a button on his social media promo. And that's when he lays out what the plan is. No, Cody Rhodes, I will not wrestle you one-on-one. We're going to do a tag match on night one. And I know you'll love this part, Eric, with stakes. Eric is big on steaks, not just fillets and ribeyes, but stakes in a match. The idea being, if The Rock and Roman Reigns win, then it's Bloodline rules on night 2 for Cody's world title shot. But if Cody and Seth win, the Bloodline is banned. They're not even allowed to be at night 2 of WrestleMania. It's just Roman Reigns. And you could see Paul Heyman's eyes twitching a little bit as he's saying all of this, but as if we needed another little, I don't know, piece of popcorn to track back our steps. It seems like we know kind of what's going to happen now on night 1. What'd you think of the execution of the promo and the laying out of the response and then the stakes for the new match?
Again, I loved it for a lot of different reasons. We were 10 minutes into that promo before anybody said a word.
Yes.
10 minutes and change. I think 10:31. Before we heard our first syllable. How awesome is that? That's awesome. That's how you hold an audience. If you have the talent in the story behind it, right? That kind of matters. I love the way it was laid out. I'm not surprised at the way this is set up, the stakes, tag match first night. Kind of saw that coming way early on. I wasn't sure how they were going to get into it, but given Seth's involvement at the press conference and Cody and the kind of things that have happened between Cody and Seth, between, beginning of the story with Rock and now, it didn't surprise me at all that we were going to see a tag with Cody and Seth,
right?
Or Rock and Roman. Saw that coming, just didn't know how it was going to be set up. But now it's clear, or is it? This is why I love this so much. If you go back and watch that promo, or perhaps you noticed the same thing I did, maybe everybody did, and I'm kidding myself thinking that maybe I saw something unique. But from early on in that promo, just looking at facial expressions or lack thereof,
right?
Really, they're building heat between Roman and Rock.
No doubt.
Roman doesn't like being overshadowed now. And now it was so obvious in that promo, the storyline perspective. Acknowledge me.
Yes.
And then the hug after. That's like a mafia hug. Oh, I'm gonna hug you right before I kill you, because that's how that works.
Right.
So there's more than one story or possible elements of one story that are evolving right before our eyes. That is a promo that tells a story, not just in the narrative of the promo, but in the subtle physical reactions of the talent in the ring. And I want to back up 1 second. When you pointed out that Paul Heyman threw to a commercial break, that was really significant, because for decades now, decades and decades and decades, whenever there was a throw to a commercial break, where did it come from? It came from the announcers.
Michael Cole at the announce desk. Yeah.
Yeah. And guess what? People tune announcers out.
Yes, they do.
They're just background noise.
Yep.
For the most part. No offense to announcers. I was one. It was one of my favorite jobs in professional wrestling, but it is what it is, right?
Yes.
But when you've got a talent in the ring throwing to a commercial break, that's as close as you could get to an in-ring sponsorship that you can without actually having a product in your hand. That was really, really significant. And I bring that up because people will go back and listen to what you said. Say, oh, but people, they throw to the break all the time. Yeah, announcers do.
Right.
Not talent in the ring. That's
Correct.
a first in my book that I can ever recall. Probably am right. Very, very cool. I love that. That's the kind of thing that gets me excited. All right. Where did we leave off?
Let's talk about, we mentioned the drug use reference, and The Rock was about to close the promo. Lean down if you smell. Here comes Roman's hand. He wants one thing: acknowledge me. He acknowledges him as his tribal chief. Fans start booing. They're chanting, "You sold out." He reminds everybody, Rock being he, this is family.
Look at Heyman's face right there.
And then, and I'm going to tell you, The Rock had one of the funniest lines. They call it a callback in stand-up comedy, but the way he closed the promo, where he goes, "Now go home and smoke some more crack." I laughed out loud. I rewound it. I watched it again this morning over breakfast. I made Megan watch it because it just tickled me. Now go home and smoke some more crack. This is Rock at his best. It was hilarious. It was well done, but the story wasn't finished because then they do their big bloodline pose. And just like they did last week, The Rock joins in, but he's not just doing the regular old point up. He's got the thumb out for the L, and Silva, throw that back up. This time, Paul Heyman notices. You see him taking a look like, wait a minute. Now look at Solo.
That is, I didn't even notice that during the promo, but that is so cool.
Look at Uso, look at Solo, look at Roman, and now look at The Rock's finger compared to everyone else's, and then look at Paul Heyman, the wise man, observing and seeing what the hell's going on. And even when The Rock was running through the stakes, man, it looked like Heyman was having an epileptic seizure or something. I mean, he was, the facials were off the charts. So, listen, the clues lead you to believe we're still going to get our Rock Roman match, but maybe it's going to be SummerSlam. But if you recall when Cody said in that first promo in Birmingham, when he was sort of tagging in The Rock for his spot, I don't just want to take the title from you. I want to take everything from you. Well, here we go. The Rock's going to try to destroy the bloodline, and he's going to be a double agent for Cody. Cody's going to win the belt on night 2. Rah, rah, rah. But boy, now we've got something that we can count on and build towards for a really long time. Maybe once upon a time, the plan was to hotshot Rock and Roman, but now it feels like if they want to, they could pay that off at SummerSlam, or they could stretch it out a whole nother year at next year's WrestleMania for the first Netflix WrestleMania, Rock and Roman. But now we've got a real story. I'm a fan of it. I really thought Brian and Dwayne and Heyman and Bruce and Paul and whoever's got their fingerprints on this was really well done. I was a big fan of this.
So well done. So well done. And this is a reason we can look, we all love wrestling. We watch it. There are periods in time when we're more excited about it than others, but this is one of those times. And I think the writing, the storytelling, the progressive nature of the story, every week it's getting more and more interesting. It's episodic. It's everything that I at least beat a drum about in terms of the way wrestling works best. It's not just an exhibition of people that can fly around and do crazy shit and cut their heads open with pliers and scissors and screwdrivers and bullshit. There is great storytelling. There is great performance in professional wrestling. And we're seeing it right now vis-a-vis the writing and the creative that's going into this. Going back to what I suggested at the beginning of the show, I think they came into this WrestleMania situation with Rock. They had one idea. Crowd reacted in a way that nobody expected, and they had to pivot. And their pivoting effort that they put into that pivot is making the original story so much better.
Yes.
But it's good writing, it's little details, it's nuance, and it's making sure that the story progresses every single time. That's how many times have you heard me talk about a disciplined arc? This is an example of a well-disciplined arc.
You know what's cool too, Eric? They've really shown some patience. Like it would have been really easy, and it felt like they were going to have to go very quickly just based on the timeline. But Cody threw down the challenge last weekend in Elimination Chamber. He wanted a match 1-on-1. Since then, we've had a Raw, we've had an NXT, and it took until SmackDown for The Rock to respond. And Cody was at the SmackDown show. He wrestled in a dark match after the show, I believe. But we didn't have Cody in that segment. We didn't have Seth in that segment. We've really taken our time. And Rock even said, next week in Dallas, we're going to get your answer. They're really taking their time. They're not just trying to throw it all out there this week. I thought that was another thing they've done really, really well. And when you talk about discipline, that's what I think about, because sometimes we've seen people trying to put, as we say in the South, 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. That's not what we're doing here. Last night or Friday night was all about The Rock and the Bloodline. We'll get the answer from Cody and Seth next week on the show. I think they're going to do great ratings on the build for this. And this is about as good of execution as we could have expected, I think.
I agree 1,000%. It is just, I don't know if it's perfect, but it's probably as close as we're going to see in live professional wrestling. It was so good. Just hats off to everybody involved on the creative side. I'm sure Brian is leading that charge, at least with regard to Rock. Always had a lot of respect for Brian, but even more so now.